Hello and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome back to the Toffee Blues Podcast. This is the second episode. Like I say, we're bringing this back regularly for the 2024-25 season. Thank you so much for all your responses on the first episode, and hopefully you keep enjoying it. So yeah, please keep leaving a like if you're excited for the return of the podcast. So yeah, I'm joined again as usual with Max Cruz. How you doing, Max?
Not too bad, mate. Good to be back on. Ready to talk all things Everton again, eh?
Yeah, and like I say, still I guess maybe licking our wounds a little bit after Saturday's results. So yeah, I guess if we kind of go through it almost chronologically, really. Obviously, we spoke here last week, both predicting a win for the game, but I guess on the day of the actual match, what was our feeling going into it up until the point when maybe the lineups were announced?
Well, it's that usual feeling of excitement in it going to the new like season, and then you kind of was on the bus towards the game, and then you see the lineup and you're thinking, oh, feels like kind of like an extension of last season already. And I felt like we were in that situation the season before as well, where it was very similar to the team that finished the season where we were struggling. And yeah, it was disappointing, but you still get that feeling like we might be okay. You know, we can get over the line. And then the game started. It was a fast start, wasn't it? But you know, we obviously didn't get the result. Very disappointing. You know, we're obviously going to start now. But yeah, I was disappointed, upset, as you know, the usual feelings really.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess I think we kind of both had the idea that on paper, I think, probably most teams in the league would look at our team on paper and think, yeah, we've got these. But, there's been games under Dyche where, we've been up against it and we've still managed to pull off a result. And I think we both kind of thought with the occasion really, with it being, the last opening home match at Goodison and things like that, that the occasion would almost just kind of carry us through and we'd managed to pull off a result and just, kind of like shock Brighton a little bit. And again, as you say, with that first 20 minutes or so with the fast start, I was starting to get that feeling, we had the disallowed goal early on, obviously Harrison a mile offside, but that for those brief seconds, I think we were all starting to think that yeah, this is all clicking into place here, and where it's going to be, what one of these final days to remember at Goodison, really. But as you say, it didn't really quite work out that way. So yeah, like I said, we both predicted the lineup for going into Brighton, and we both kind of missed the idea that maybe Michael Keane might be preferred to Jake
Yeah.
O'Brien. So yeah, talk us a bit through your reaction to when that one came out, I guess.
Um, well, we didn't really mention it on the podcast last week, but it was kind of like, oh yeah, you can predict that one really. Kind of expect that because Dice is used to his favourites and it's what he's used to. Obviously, Michael Keane's got that experience, but we know he's just not been good enough over the last few years. And you think when you got like a 6'6" new signing on the bench and centre half, you know, Brantwaite's out, you think that he would be the obvious replacement, but to be honest, the two centre backs that were on Saturday were poor, weren't they? It wasn't just Keane. It felt like our only attacks came from a Keane diagonal. That was kind of like the only positive towards Jack Harrison. But yeah,
Mm. Yeah, like I said, I think King got made out to be a little bit of a scapegoat, to be honest, which, as you say, I think is a little bit unfair because it's. But I can understand it a little bit because it is almost that I think Tarkowski plays a little differently when he's got someone like Keane beside it to someone like Brantford. You can tell last season there was that trust between Brantford and Tarkowski, and Tarkowski didn't feel the need to like overcommit sometimes if it was on Brantford's side because he just he had the faith in Brantford to deal with it, where maybe that sense of trust is maybe lacking in Keane a little bit. And I'd say that's as much on Tarkowski as it is on Keane, really. It's to do with, prior stuff. But I think we played a little differently defensively, and I think maybe Brighton they didn't quite play the way we were already expecting a bit. They were hitting us more on the break, whereas I think we were kind of expecting it to be the other way around, Brighton to be having all the chances and kind of camped on the edge of our penalty area, and then we break away, but it was actually the exact opposite. So, like I said, we had all the chances towards the start of the game, but obviously, Brighton go down the other end and score. But I think at that point, I think I'd be fair to say that we were probably quite unlucky to be behind. What do you make of that?
Yeah, but I could kind of see it because he looked like a bit vulnerable on the counter, as you say. Mikalenko needed more help on that side with that Minter. You know, he was quality. Michael Keane was trying to be quite aggressive at times, but kind of missing tackles, and they were getting him behind quite easily, and he hasn't got the pace to recover like Braunthwaite does. I felt like at times we give them a bit too much respect, if I'm being honest. I felt like we could have stuck it on them a bit more because they were making mistakes, and I felt like at the time in that first half they were there for the taking because they're obviously having some teething problems themselves, and I think they'll get better and better as the season goes. But I feel like we gave them too much respect from the off, to be honest.
That's I've seen a few people saying this, but like I say, and I think it almost the ideas kind of counteract each other a little bit. I think the idea of Keenan Tarkowski being aggressive was probably deliberate, and I think we were trying to, make life difficult for them a bit, and keep that energy up. And I think like as I say, for the first 20 minutes or so, we were harnessing the energy around Goodison because the atmosphere when Zed Cars kicked in and stuff like that was excellent. And then obviously you have the amazing tribute to Kevin Campbell, which got the whole ground on its feet, and all that sort of stuff. That's a disallowed goal as well. That's even though it's a bit of a disappointment, it
Yeah,
gives everyone a boost and it gives everyone that belief. And I think we were almost trying to harness that energy a little bit. And I actually thought we pressed quite well. Like, I think people said like we could have done more and stuff like that. But those errors were being forced, I think. That as you say, Brighton were, giving the ball away a lot. I think the keeper always looked a bit wary every time the ball came to him and stuff. And that's why you have the likes of Decore and Harrison, those people that would just chase everything in there. And I actually didn't think we did too badly with it. I think we were quite unlucky. I think it was the defence that was just getting us caught out a little bit. Obviously everyone pinpointed that
yeah,
Matoma on Young was going to be a bit of a difficulty, but I think to me Mikalenko doesn't look fit yet, and obviously he's had those injury worries like from the end of last season, and obviously missed pretty much all the Euros because of it as well. So I don't think he's fully fit yet, but obviously we don't have too much cover in that position, so yeah, he kind of had to play, and that does worry me a little bit because Mikalenko was always, especially last season, was always a reliable defender, and to see as good as Minte was, to see him breeze past him as easily as he did so many times, and for the first goal, of course, was concerning. So yeah, like I said, I thought we were very unlucky to be honest for large portions of that game, and I thought I was expecting Brighton to be a lot more dominant than they were. And it suggests to me they're going to be playing a little bit differently throughout this season because or they've just learned from previous mistakes, especially against us, where we can make life difficult for them and hit them on the break, and they were a lot more alert to that, I guess. Um, so yeah, like I say, I mean, then I guess going into the second half, early on you get the Calvert-Lewin penalty, debacle and all the controversy that has come out of that. What were your like immediate thoughts? I think from where you sit, you're probably a bit closer to it and probably had a better view of it from your end of the ground than I did. I was sat in the park end, but what were your
yeah.
initial thoughts about the penalty decision?
Yeah, well, I was kind of like level with the penalty box in the upper Bullens, and I sort of like saw it, and I thought straight away, I got up on my feet, and I think a few people didn't really get up, and I thought, oh, I'm not sure about that one actually, but I think going off the replays, I can understand why it wasn't given in the end. I mean, it's supposed to be a higher bar with the like changing of decisions with referees on penalties and whatever else. They shouldn't be getting involved. But for me, I feel like he can stay up and just have a shot himself anyway. I feel like he doesn't need to throw himself to the ground. It's like, that's what I'm frustrated about more than anything because it would have been soft either way, really. Would you agree with that?
Like I said, it's a difficult one, and I hate having to talk about VAR every week and things like that. But for me, it is still problematic. Like you say, the bar is meant to be higher this season, and I think as you said, like I think a lot of people in the ground were a little bit 50-50. But the fact is, the referee pretty much had no hesitation about it at all. He
Mhm.
pointed straight to the spot, and I think almost
Yeah,
straight away from that, unless he's made a glaring like mistake, then I honestly don't think that the VAR should really get too involved with that. Obviously, you had this whole situation with the cameras not being on apparently, but I think that's been cleared up now that there was a secondary monitor on the thing, and you can kind of tell from the thing that he's not actually looking at the screen at all. He is looking at
yeah,
something else, and obviously he's got the information going on in his ear. But I think for me, and like I said, I don't want to have a VAR debate every week. I definitely don't want us to turn into that. But I think if the referee gives it, and if there's like differing opinions on either side, like I for one think it is a penalty. I can understand why it wouldn't be like given if the referee hadn't given it in real time. And I'd happily admit I might feel a bit differently if it was the other way around and say if it was a Tarkowski tackle on Welbeck or whatever. But I can understand why Calvert-Lewin has gone to ground. I think Dunker's done enough to send him to ground, and the fact the referee gives it makes me think it should have been given. Is my
Yeah,
opinion. And like I say, I know a lot of people will have similar opinions to yourself that Cavalier should have stayed on his feet and all sorts. But for me, it should have been given, and I do think that if that had been given, it could have been quite a different game, really.
yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I
Well,
think that was a little bit of a turning point. Yeah, go on.
it wasn't a clear and obvious error, so it shouldn't really have been
Yeah,
overturned. I mean, that's the whole point of VAR, is supposed to, eradicate clear and obvious errors. And once
yeah,
again, it's kind of like the game's been re-refereed, and he had the perfect view in the whole stadium. He gave the penalty. He's the man in the middle, so they should stick with his decision.
yeah.
There's no need to go to VAR for that.
Yeah, and the fact is there were a few other over the weekend where they were like kind of up in the air and they stuck with the referee's decision, and that is how it should be. And the only frustration is that that wasn't the case
Yeah,
for us, and that's say I think all most people say all we really demand is just consistency. Like tell us the rules, and if you stick by them for all these games, I know different referees have different opinions and things like that, and people like to get more involved or whatever, but we just want a bit of consistency really. And the fact is we'll get done by one of
yeah,
these in a few weeks, where it's the other way around and it's a 50-50 and they stick with the referee's decision and a
yeah.
lot of us will rightly feel aggrieved. But like I say, so yeah, getting back to the game and we'll avoid any every other referee controversy now. But yeah, like I say, not too soon after that, even though I thought we started the first half pretty well. Mistake from Gay and Brighton go down the other end and make it 2-0. So yeah, just yeah, talk us through your feelings when that one went in, I guess.
Yeah, well, it was one of them where he picks up the ball and he lifts his head, and there's not really any options, is there? And they end up like they're pressing quite high. There's no one to receive the ball, so it's gonna like it happened to Brighton. They gave away the ball in midfield like that. We just didn't capitalise on those errors. We've seen it loads of times before with Gabe being a bit risky and giving away ball, and teams gone on the other end and scored goals. But you got to. I felt like there was no idea about what we were doing. It's just kind of like we played from the back and it's boot it towards the centre forward or Jack Harrison, and they had like a style of play of building up and their press. I felt like ours was a bit like no idea. Um, but yeah, like I said, there was no options, and then they punished us on the counter, and they were clinical, just something that we're not at the minute, and we haven't been for a long time. But
Yeah.
as well as that, they've got pace and power on the counter. We lack that, and pace and power kills teams. This is what you need in like the Premier League.
Yeah, I think I think it's definitely true that we did lose our way a little bit after that first 20 minutes. I think Brighton maybe made a few tweaks and were a little more as you say adapting to that keen ball that was constantly being played over to Harrison and that was causing them issues. And yeah, like I say, I think after that it was a little less coherent what we were trying to do with it and stuff and yeah, like I say, it is poor from Gay, but I do sympathise with him as you say that there wasn't really too much on for him there, and like I say, once we were in that position, there was only going to be one outcome. People have been criticising the likes of I think both Tarkowski and Keane maybe could have gone to him a bit sooner, but the fact is we were really caught
Mm.
out. We were pushing the fullbacks a bit too high. As I say, Mikalenko isn't the best upfield anyway, and with him maybe not being fully fit, and then obviously Ashley Young on the other side, the most evident issues possible really with him tracking back and racing up and down the wing. It's going to leave us exposed, especially with just how dangerous their wingers were, and they were both options. So I can understand
Yeah.
like really why Tarkowski and Keane didn't commit. And once Welbeck got to a certain area, he was always going to score, really, wasn't he? And I think once that second goal went in, there was a few, there was maybe some optimism that when it was still 1-0, we could get our way back into the game. And the penalty was a bit of a false dawn because it looked like our route back into the match. But yeah, once it got into 2-0, I think we were all a little bit, fearing the worst at that point, weren't we? Um,
I think as well. Sorry to jump in. I think I think it's easy to say, obviously, now, like in hindsight, but if we had like Brentford there and talk, obviously, have that relationship together, I think they would have closed that shot down better or well better. I think there was a bit of a unsureness about who was to go and close down and who wasn't. I think that was a large factor. But that comes to not playing together a lot. I think, on another day, don't think they would have scored that. I think with Brentford, I think we'd been fine. But, it is what it is, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, I completely agree, isn't it? As you said before, Brentford and Tarkowski had this really good partnership, and it was clear, Brentford's the aggressive one because he's got that pace and freshness, whereas Tarkowski I think is a lot more adept at blocking and being that last line of defence. And if it does get past Brentford, Tarkowski will be there to sweep up and block it or whatever. But Keane and Tarkowski are a bit too similar in profile, and as you say, there isn't that working relationship there, and they know who's going to do what, and yeah as I said, it did catch us out, didn't it? And then yeah, obviously, not too soon after that, the red card. Obviously, one of them in the ground where everyone knows straight away there could be no complaints. Uh, and I think at that point we all knew the game was gone, really, didn't we? So yeah, like I say, obviously, there was a lot of anger at the fact Young was starting in the first place, and but obviously, Dyche had his hands tied really with his options. But yeah, like I say, that was really the moment there where a few people started to like leave the ground and stuff like that, and it was almost over the contest then, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it just all kind of summed it up really for the day, wasn't it? Fast start, goal disallowed, concede again, against the run of play. They get another, miss out on a penalty, and then a red card just to top it off, wasn't it? Yeah, I think Young knows he should have headed the ball. I mean, it's one of them. The game was gone anyway, wasn't it? Because when's the last time we've seen a comeback at home anyway when we gone 1-0 down? The game
Exactly.
has gone at 2-0. It just added salt to the wound sort of thing. So, yeah. It's just where we go from next. Who fills that position now? Because it's a bit of a crisis, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a little bit, and yeah, we'll definitely get onto that in a bit. But yeah, I just want to kind of talk on what you touched on there a little bit with this mentality that as soon as we concede, especially at Goodison, I think a lot of people start to think, well, that's it, because there is still that stigma around the fact that if we concede, we don't win, and that's still the case of the Dyche. He's been here 18 months now, and I was saying on the first day I was confident for some whatever reason. I just had in my head that we were going to concede, but we were still going to win, and just like get rid of that straight away. And I think it is the type of thing that Dyche will know will weigh on the fans and maybe even weigh on the players. Um, and he'll say like in his simplifying way of things, and that the only way to get rid of that is to prove it wrong. And as soon as it's disproved, then it won't play on the players' minds anymore. It's exactly the same when Calvert-Lewin was going through his poor run of form last season. He just said he just needs one to go in the back of the net for him, and things will start to turn around in our favour. So yeah, like I said, I completely agree on that. And as I say, I think it's something that definitely weighs on the fans and probably weighs on the players as well, which obviously is cause for concern. Speaking of the fans and comments made by Deitch, I think it's probably appropriate now to discuss a little bit about this. And
Yeah.
obviously, the anger continued past the full-time whistle once fans had heard what some of the things that Deitch has said in his post-match comments. I guess the main one that people seem to have latched on to is you know, his supposed criticism in inverted commas, I have to say, of fans getting off early. You can probably tell from how I'm talking about this that I have quite a strong opinion on this. But what did you make of what Deitch has said?
Um, well, he didn't actually say anything that wasn't kind of true, was it? I mean, I must admit, I left after the third goal myself because I just thought there's no chance here that the crowd aren't in the game anymore. The players don't look in the game. Brighton was just knocking it about a bit. I mean, there was nothing to play for, was there, at that point? He's correct in a way, but we're entitled as fans to do that because those players haven't performed for us. We paid our money. People have lives outside of football. They've got to go. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, maybe he could have worded it a bit better in terms of the fact that we're just a demanding fan base who expect a lot from our players and our team because we're Everton Football Club. That would be the more like positive outlook on it, rather than thinking, "Oh, this is what Everton fans do because they're not very loyal or they're not very this or that." He's not said anything that's not true, has he? it's just maybe like the tone or the manner of which he said it. And obviously, after a loss, everyone's feeling a bit grouchy, aren't they?
Mm. Well, I mean, breaking it down to bare basics for me, obviously, we're both journalists, or at least journalism students, and we know that you know with interviewers, especially as I was the BBC and stuff like, sometimes they know what they're asking, and they know that there are a lot of traps that they're laying down there in the hope of getting a soundbite. And I think it's one of those questions, the question about like, was it disillusioning for you for the fans to be leaving? There's almost no right answers to that, and I
Yeah.
actually thought Dyche's answer like is pretty much the only thing you can really say in that situation, and it's just a few like words that he chose that people have latched onto, the idea of it being this football club. Um, and the more I start to think about it, I thought at first it was just something he just kind of said without really thinking about it. But I actually think he means it as a compliment. I genuinely do. I think he means that these fans demand the best. And if they don't think they're getting that, and if they're seeing their team lose by 3 goals, of course they're going to get off because that's not what they've paid their money for. They would have been coming to this ground, a lot of them, and seeing us win things and be the best team in the country. They demand that level. They want their team to be the best. And I've always been a strong supporter of Deitch, and I defended him through a lot. And some people might disagree with my view on things like that, but that's genuinely how I see it. And I think the main thing for me is that people are angry because we've lost, and people wouldn't even care what Deitch has said if we won the game. These comments only get picked up on when we've had a bad defeat, and I think Deitch knows that it doesn't really matter what he says too much. People say about how well Lampard built a relationship with the fans. But
Yeah.
Dyche knows that the way to get the fans on board is to win, is to win games. That's all fans really want, like more than anything anyway. If you can do both, perfect. But I think
Yeah.
Dyche would rather focus on getting the team winning again than getting his answers right in a press conference. And I say people will think that's quite flippant or whatever, but yeah, that was my view on it all, really. And
Yeah.
mm,
Well, it's like at times last season where we're struggling, or where we had like 4 wins on the trot, and then we went a period like between like December and like February. We didn't win a game, did we? And it's like at one point he's the hero, and the next thing he's like the worst manager in the world. It is easy to forget, isn't it? I mean, you start the season and you lose 3-0, it's going to be negative, isn't it? People are feeling a bit just like peeved off, sort of thing, annoyed, and people are always going to pick up on these little things of what he says. They're over analyzing what he says because they need something to hold on to at times. But yeah, he could have said anything, and people will probably would have said, "Oh, I'm not happy with that. I'm not happy with this." Everyone's entitled to their opinion, of course. As a fan who's paying to go see the team, and even you know, all we want is the best for this football club.
yeah, absolutely. And like I say, I completely sympathise with any fan getting off early. And like I say, I think I do think that Dyche does too. Like whether he worded it in the right way or not, I do genuinely believe that was the message he was trying to get across. But and like you say, people look at the result and it being a 3-0 defeat, but I genuinely don't think it was a 3-0 defeat on the balance of play.
Mm.
Obviously, it hints at a bigger problem that as soon as we go to down to 10 men, it was over as a contest, and Brighton could finally do what I think we all really expected them to come into the game doing and just control the ball and just suffocate any life out of the game. We barely had a sniff, barely even got into their half, really. Um, and they added a third, could have added a fourth through offside, and just constantly looked a threat. Really, it was done as a contest. And yeah, obviously in that sort of aspects, fans are going to get off. Just quickly while we're still on the on the Brighton game, I just wanted to get your man of the match for the game from our side of things, obviously.
Oh, that I think that's quite easy because there was one man that was head and shoulders above everyone, and that was that Tim Irabunen. I
Mm,
thought he was brilliant. I thought I thought he was doing a lot of things on his own at times, and it was a bit of a struggle. He got tired toward the end, but he looked good on the ball. He plays quite high up as well. He was
mm,
winning the ball quite high up. I was quite surprised at. I thought he was more of a sitter, but yeah, he just looks confident, composed. He can pick a pass. He came close early on as well. Didn't need to score in. I think he'll get better and better as well.
mm,
I think he was brilliant. He was my man of the match by far.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Especially in the first half, I thought he was almost faultless. And I think his energy in particular was really driving the team on. I think he, as much as anyone really, like was picking up on the feeling around the ground and leading us on, really winning tackles. Won a really good tackle early on, didn't he? In the corner.
Yeah,
Between the main stand and the Granite Street, and straight away that he knows that's what gets Goodison on his feet. They love a crunching tackle. Um, and was even playing some really incisive passes, I thought, as well, and really forward thinking, positive play. And as you say, it did tail away a little bit in the second half. But obviously, with the energy dipped in the game, and yeah, the life almost sucked out of us. Really, that was to be expected, I guess. I'm starting to see signs a little bit that he's going to be almost like a James Garner for me. I think quite a tidy little player, and will win some really good tackles for us and stuff. But I'm just a little worried that because we've seen it so many times with our fans, and that we see the first few games of him, and we think he's going to be the next like big thing, and then he has a few bad games, and opinion starts to drop off a little bit. I think Andre Gomez springs to mind straight away, and players like that, that look like everything we're crying out for, and then aren't quite what they think we're going to be. But you need to have that balance, and it just linked back to what we were saying
yeah,
before, really, about when we're losing, people have a go at Dyche. When we're winning, people are like praising him. But sometimes you just need to be a bit in the middle, and I think Iwobunem's going to be a really good player for us, really solid for us. But I just don't want people thinking he's going to be the next best thing, really, and putting a lot of pressure on, obviously still very young shoulders. But yeah, I guess looking ahead now. Obviously we have Tottenham on Saturday. And I guess, as you say, as we've hinted at before, I guess the first thing to look at is who the hell plays at right back. Obviously, Holgate coming on against Brighton was not met very well by Goodison. It's got to be said.
no,
People were marking on just how many people actually left the ground purely at that. I didn't agree with booing him. That's got to be said. I don't know if you're booing him or
mhm,
booing the fact that we're in a situation where we have to play him. I can understand both sides, but I just don't think it helps anything really. So I never like a player coming on being booed really, but I obviously
yeah,
I do understand the anger, but I mean it's really got to be him, hasn't it? I know a lot of people are saying Dixon, but I can't see
yeah.
that, mate. What do you reckon?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say like it's not Holgate's fault that he was brought on, sort of thing. It's not his fault that he's still at this club. It's the board's fault. The transfer policy. He should not be here. He should not be playing for us now. Anyway, um, booing doesn't help ever, does it? I mean, it's never going to help a player's performance. But I think he is the only really option at the minute, isn't he? A right back. Coleman's obviously injured. Young obviously sent off. And then the people are talking about the Roman Dixon in the under 21s, but it's a big jump in it to put him in against on his debut against Minson. I mean, that it's just setting up for failure, really, isn't it? So I think it has to be Holgate. You never know; we could have a solid game. He's had solid games for us before, um, but yeah, I think it's going to have to be Holgate, isn't it?
Yeah, I know some people are like talking about like perhaps a change in system and things like that. Maybe like playing five at the back, getting O'Brien in and putting someone like Harrison at right wing back. I can't see that working
Mm.
for me. I've got to be honest. Obviously once Young went off, there was a little bit of moving things around a little bit. I think McNeil went out there at first, and Harrison was out there for a bit. Then I think Keane almost moved over, and we kind of dropped the wingers back a bit on both sides, and then finally Holgate came on. So it's clear it's not a situation we were hoping to be in, and that we really had too much of a
No.
plan for. And obviously Tottenham were they weren't great on Monday, but there was a lot of signs that attacking wise they can they can pose problems if they're more clinical really. So the likes of Tungmin Song coming up against someone like Holgate or an untried kid like Dixon who is has clearly got a lot of promise, but I think a lot of it is based on the fact he's quite fast rather than him being like anything like he's done
Yeah,
defensively really. So um and yeah, like I say, it's a desperate situation to be in. Um, whichever
we're
way you look at it,
starved at
really.
pace.
Yeah,
We're
we are
starved at pace.
100.
That's why people jump on it.
Yeah. And like, as I say, we both said that we didn't really think Diane Lindstrom would start. We kind of had the idea that McNeil and Harrison would be sticking, and Decore as well. Like, would you be starting either of them on Saturday? Obviously, Lindstrom played last night as we record this in the under 21s game, which
Yeah,
makes me think he's definitely not going to be starting. Might come on off the bench really,
yeah.
but I am starting to think that maybe Ndai might be played. I don't know. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I agree with Ndai. I think he'll play. I think he kind of has to. I think not to be horrible or anything, but I think Decore looked so slow on last weekend. I thought he looked like an old man, to be honest, at times. I think Ndai has to come into the side, bit of flair, bit of positivity in his play. Break down Tottenham in some way on the counter. I think that's the positive move. I think that has to happen. I don't think Lindstrom will play. I don't think Dyche fancies him yet. I've got that feeling about him. I don't know. I feel like it could be at the minute a bit of a Dan Juma situation where we might not trust him or what. It's demoralising when he says we bought these players and we think, oh, we could be pushing on maybe this season, and he says these aren't ready for the Premier League, and it's like, oh my god, like are we stuck with the same team again this season, just grinding out results? But yeah, I think when Dye comes in, I think it's a tough one with Jake O'Brien as well. Does he come in as well? What do you think?
Mm, that's I can understand that the argument behind starting him. I do think he's going to play Keane again more than I can't really. I almost can't really separate what I do from what I think Dyche should do. I'm almost certain Dyche will play Keane again, and therefore
Yeah,
that's about the long and short of it, really. That's I think the Doncaster game, obviously next week will be identified as giving Lindstrom a start, giving Beto a start, and getting giving O'Brien a start, and maybe then we'll start to see him a little bit involved more. It's exactly what we did last season. So people acting like it's the most surprising thing in the world. I really don't think it is. And if it pays off, and if we start hitting some form again in September and October, as I say, people have forgotten all about all this really. But yeah, just
yeah.
quickly on Tottenham then before we start to wrap up. Prediction? Do I dare ask?
Well, the last time we beat Tottenham away was under an Angelotti 1-0, wasn't it? Was it first game? Um, we performed well there last season, didn't we? I think we played really well, but I can't really see us getting a result, to be honest.
Mhm.
I just feel like there's too many like issues at the minute with injuries and stuff. I feel like it's a bit of a write-off. The second game. I mean, this has been being a bit pessimistic, um, but I feel like I'm being like realistic at the same time. I'll go. I think we'll lose. I don't think we'll get much out of the game. Let's hope just no injuries, bit of a fitness game. Everyone gets up to speed again, and we can look ahead then to the rest of the season, sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think the chances will be there. As you say, I think every time we played Tottenham really under Dyche, we've had the chances and we've played a lot better than people expect us to. Really, I've seen people saying we're going to get thumped. I really don't see it. I don't think Tottenham are in as good a headspace as they would have be hoped to be in as well. I think they were expected to batter Leicester on the first day and confidence would be floating, but the result wise means that they're not going to be in the greatest of positions confidence wise either. So I think the chances will be there. I don't think our confidence is really there either to take them necessarily, but I don't think it'll quite. I just don't think it'll be as bad as people are saying. I think maybe a 1-0, 2-0 where Spurs get their season off and running, but at least
Yeah,
we put up a bit of a fight. Really, I guess is all we can really hope for. Really, but yeah. So yeah, I guess moving on from that then, I guess just before we wrap up, I believe you have a few quiz questions for me. I sprang some on you last week, but yeah,
yes,
now it's your turn.
it's my turn. Your turn to answer the questions. Put you under pressure now. Let's see. Let's just see how you do. Right. So last season at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, we lost 2-1, didn't we?
Mhm.
Who came off the bench to score for Everton that day?
It was Andre Gomez. Very,
Correct.
very surprising, I remember, but very good performance to be
Yeah.
fair.
It was just he looked brilliant that day, didn't he?
He did, looked excellent, really good, and never really
Yeah.
like recaptured that.
And we could have got a point in the end with Dan
Yeah,
Juma hitting
that's
the
a
bar, couldn't we?
he should have got an assist as well, really. Again, another
Yeah.
decision that still eats away. But yeah.
Yeah, well, obviously we know Guzman Park's final season and the final season at White Hart Lane, our last ever game there. We lost 3-2. But who came the last player to ever score at that stadium? for Everton.
for Everton. Oh, I think I remember to get him. And Kane scoring a couple. 3-2, I think it finished. I don't know if you said that. Lukaku definitely got one. I think he might have got both. I think we lost 3-2. I'll say Lukaku.
It was Anna Valencia.
Oh bloody hell, I never would have got
Yeah.
that. Oh,
Lukaku did score though.
Lukaku definitely got one. I remember one. I think the Tongan slipped over
Yeah.
but I remember that bit vividly, and I remember it finished 3-2. I just couldn't remember who got the other one. Valencia. I forgot he
Yeah.
even played for us. Jesus.
He was a super sub, he was, under
Yeah, he was a
Koeman's
little bit,
era.
wasn't he?
Um, so in that match day squad against Tottenham on that day when we lost 3-2, how many featured in Sean Dyche's opening day squad against Brighton on Saturday?
Oh my. I imagine Coleman might have played, although he might have been injured at that point. That might have been after he got that injured, but obviously he didn't play on Saturday. Is anyone else still? Again, Gay came back, so I think he'll be one. Would it be any others? I don't think there will be any others, right? No, I'm gonna say one. Gonna Gay.
It was two. Yeah,
Uh,
so it was Idrissa Gana Gay and Mason Holgate.
oh bloody hell! Oh
That's
Jesus!
how far it's gone.
It's
And then
mental how long he's been at
obviously,
the club, you know. But yeah, no, fair.
yeah. Well, in the squad that day that's still in and around the club was obviously Gay, Holgate, Coleman played, and Dele Alli also scored for Tottenham.
Brilliant. That's amazing. Jesus Christ. How long ago it was as well. Mental.
I know, I know. So that was obviously quite a decent season for us as well. So do you remember where we finished in the Premier League that season?
That was the year we finished seventh when Lukaku got like 25 or something. We finished seventh under Koeman's first season.
Yeah. So we got 16 points and we were 15 points ahead of Southampton in eighth.
Jesus. Yeah, I remember there was a
Yeah,
point where we were pushing for Europe. I remember we had a really good spell around March time where we were winning a lot and Lukaku just kept scoring. And then we
yeah,
had a really like pretty crap end to the season, I think. But yeah.
yeah. Lukaku was second in the top goal
Yeah,
scorers.
yeah,
Yeah.
mental.
So when was the last time we beat Tottenham in a competitive fixture? Do you remember the score as well?
Oh, it will have been. Yeah, the fact you've said competitive, I think, it's given it away for me. I think it was the cup game, wasn't it? The cup game the 5-4, mental 5-4 during
Yeah,
COVID.
yeah,
Yeah, a ridiculous game that was. Absolutely bizarre. I
yeah.
remember that. Like, but one of those ones that like COVID was just such a fever dream. Like, did the games even happen? Did Hammers ever play for us? You know what I mean?
No.
Like,
And then, yeah, I just remember Angelotti drinking his Bovril, just calm
yeah,
throughout the
there was
whole
that
game.
game as well. Oh, Jesus.
Bernard got the winner, didn't he?
Yeah, brilliant, really good volley it was. Yeah, like I
It
say,
was
just
it.
bonkers game.
Calvert-Lewin scored. Richarlison got two. Gylfi Sigurdsson got one. And Bernard got the winner.
Mental, mental.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah, that was a bit of a yeah, like I say, obviously only a few years ago, like but yeah, a bit of a trip down memory lane there. Happier times against Tottenham anyway. Like I say, it's happier than
yes.
I'm sure they'll be on Saturday. But yeah, we're gonna wrap this up. So thank you very much for joining me, Max. Please leave a like if you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe to Toffee Blues channel for more Everton content, including the podcast. And we will see you in the next one. Up the Toffees.